Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast, episode number 221. Thank you for joining us. We have a real cool episode. One of our colleagues in Florida, Taymoor Pilehvar, I'll confirm with him we got the name right, but he's a good colleague and he's done some really interesting stuff. Not only does he do immigration law, he has a subset practice. I got to see if he's still doing this about Indian affairs and those kind of lawsuits. So it'd be neat to talk about. He contributed a great article about O-1 extensions in the latest issue of the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. You can check that out at immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/magazine, issue number 3. A lot of great information in there. Colleagues really, got things together really well in there. So I'm really proud of that magazine, and Taymoor was a big part of it. Now, I do want to thank the sponsors for the magazine, in particular, DocuWise, who's always been a sponsor of the show and the magazine, very supportive. You could get additional 10% off their annual plan by going to immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com/immigration-lawyers-podcast and use the code immigration lawyers podcast. DocuWise is an all-in-one form system and office management, all these different aspects. And if you're practicing and you're looking for technology, that's one of the top names that come, and they have a lot of people going to them and seeing what they're doing. So definitely worth a look at that. I also want to thank Joseph Sang of Sang Law, who's a contributor constantly on the show, both the magazine and the podcast. But he decided to help his services. He's been doing behind the scenes services of support for immigration law firms who need to ramp up or suddenly get a lot of cases. But he's opened it up more. And we've talked about it on the show. We have a special episode that really explains it. But if you're doing cases you may not know how to do, NIWs, EB1s, or all of a sudden you get 10 of some case, you can't handle it, he has staff built out internationally that can support you. So check out sanglaw.com, Joseph Sang, TSANG law, and contact him and get information on that. It's really neat what he's doing for people who need support or need help in educating and learning stuff. He could partner up with you or behind the scenes work. He has all these different systems. It's really neat. Definitely check it out. And finally, if you're interested in learning about marriage immigration law and how to do that, I have a whole course on it. I have office hours. Students are really pleased. I'm going to get around to doing video testimonials. They're all really happy. It's a really cool thing to do. And if you're interested in learning more, email me at info@jqqlaw.com, or it should be info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. But just email me, you'll get it. But I don't want to keep our guests waiting. Taymoor, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. It's a pleasure.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
It is Pilevhar, right?
yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, I can pronounce it. I guess it's a Persian name, but how do Americans pronounce it?
Pilevhar.
Pilevhar.
Yeah, I can't even describe the ways they've messed it up, but I respond to about anything.
I hear you. So, how did you get in this game? I mean, we've talked privately. I already know the backstory, but for people, this is their first time on the show live, or we talked before on the show. Sorry, I should know that as a podcast host.
No, this is our first time actually. Yeah,
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 we've
we've
had a
talked before, but never
yeah,
never recorded. So
yeah. That's cool. I'm glad you got on the show because we've had in-depth conversation. Remember about your history, and I was like, oh, it kind of feels like a podcast. But yeah, how did you get in this game?
it all started from a kind of a professor that referred me on a pro bono case in law school,
Hmm.
and it was actually a pro bono like federal Indian law case. And it was with a lawyer that also did immigration. And he liked my writing, so he applied me to the immigration side of the firm. And, I took off. I liked it. So I
Interesting.
followed that from Oklahoma to Florida, where I just figured it might be easier to find clients.
Yeah.
And, luckily it's worked out so far. So,
I get a lot of asylum calls from Oklahoma. Apparently, a lot of Iranians go to Oklahoma and do asylum or something like that. That's a fairly typical. I don't do asylum law, so I just tell them I can't help them. But I was always amazed, like, oh, there's Iranians in Oklahoma too, or all over the place. But so yeah, go ahead.
yeah, honestly, I feel like was a denser Persian community in Oklahoma than Florida, to be honest. But
Interesting.
maybe it's because in Florida we all just blend in as Latinos, and no one knows
Yeah.
the difference. So.
So you're in Florida, that's where your practice is, and do you still do Indian affairs kind of stuff, litigation? I remember you had this big case that you did a couple years back that was really interesting.
So I'm actually still gearing up for that case. It's all about INA 289, which is the J Treaty green card, right? It's
Yeah.
Canadians, people born in Canada who are, and this is the key provision, of at least 50% uh, American Indian blood. And I'm wanting to kind of challenge that 50% requirement as discriminatory.
Hmm.
And, I've got a client who's 25%, but
Yeah.
otherwise qualified, and he got denied. And before I bring the suit, I'm trying to make multiple levels of arguments, and I want to bring his mom in as a plaintiff too, because she was of 50% blood, and
Mhm.
she qualifies. In fact, right now she's trying to get her own J Treaty green card, and once she has it, I'll be ready to go. And I want to bring her in as a plaintiff so that I can challenge from the son's perspective because he was discriminated against for
Mhm.
the green card, and from the mother's perspective for basically a violation of the right against miscegenation, anti-miscegenation laws. In other words, had the mom bred with somebody of indigenous blood, she would have been able to confer her right of free passage to her son. But because she bred outside of her race, she wasn't able
Interesting.
to confer that right of free passage. So,
Fascinating.
you only get one bite at the apple. So I want to make sure to bring this in so that I have as many layers of my argument as I can. So I've been ready to go with the son for a year now, but there's been some changes at the border with this indigenous J Treaty green card. They used to issue the green card at the border. You could bring
Yeah.
all of your blood documents and membership documents, and they would mark you down as a green card at the border, and you would go to your destination and get the green card in the mail. But now they make you enter as a visitor, do the info pass appointment, and then
Oh,
submit a
horrible.
claim. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I was ready to go this month, but I found all that out with these new procedures, and it's going to be about another 6 months. But I'm telling you, it's coming. The storms are coming.
We'll have you on the show because it's so interesting to think about, Indian affairs being immigration, and it's within our immigration field, but it seems like it'd be so foreign, but it's INA kind of stuff. And for those who don't know about the J Treaty, to recap it really quick, it's like there's tribes that are at the border. Essentially, that was their land cross border. So the J Treaty says that if you're in Canada, you get a green card and come to the United States. And as you said, it was just an easy thing. People had contacted me before. I said, just go to the border and just do it. It's like if you get the paperwork right. But if you have them go to info pass, that's a black hole right there. I can see how much problems that creates.
Well, I
You
don't
know,
think
it's
the government's worried about efficiency at this point.
not at all. There's newer immigration lawyers who don't know. Back in the day, you could go online and I mean, I say go online and get info pass point. Even then, they were never available, and you had to go and all day and click on it. But the way they got info passes now, you have to call it in. Is just a nightmare. That system. I'm not it just whatever you could do inefficiently, especially during President Trump's time, they were doing. And I understand people misuse the InfoPass system because I have people who call USCIS for everything, and like you said, like that's why his phone lines are probably clogged up. But what they've done to InfoPass is a disaster. It's just so hard to do anything done. So you're in Florida. You got your own practice, a full solo, and we'll talk about office management, that kind of stuff in a bit. But you kind of gravitated towards sports-based immigration, which is a big hub now, especially with Ksenia Mairova and like the sports association. You guys are like all the sports lawyers are. You know how a lot of comedians are going to Austin, Texas. That's a big thing. A lot of sports immigration lawyers essentially go to Florida now. What is that your niche field, or do you do other parts of immigration? And how did you get involved in sports in particular?
I don't think I can fairly call it my niche if I were to do a pie graph of everything I do, but
Yeah.
it is definitely the one that it's how I bit my teeth on immigration. That's the first at the firm I was at. It was predominantly a sports immigration law firm, so I'm very comfortable with it, and I love the clients. But I'll take any approvable case that comes through the door, John. You know how it is.
Yeah.
So I've been somewhat of a renaissance man in that regard. A lot of family based H-1Bs, Ls,
Yeah.
perms. I mean, but
Wow.
also, I've got a ballet team that I represent now, so I do a lot of Ps through them.
Hmm.
I've got a greenhouse that I represent, and I do two big groups of H-2A workers a year for them. So, I,
You must get slammed all of a sudden with these kind of things when the time comes.
this is there's some feast and famine months. I've been on a good string of feast months lately, so yeah, I've been pretty
God bless
busy.
you.
But
Yes, immigration. My newsletter for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, I talked about like this saying of December as being slow months, and it is partially true. And people are taking time off, so they want it to be a slow month many times. But there's ups and downs of immigration, especially end of the year. But the goal is that every month is increasing. Never want to go down because the bills, especially with inflation, you can really see it here in California. Gas is like pretty much $5 a gallon right now.
Oh man.
How is it in Florida right now?
Uh, well, if you want ethanol-free gas, you're gonna pay about 4.50 a gallon, but
Wow, they got you
that's
there too.
yeah, yeah.
So
So,
yeah, and everyone's moving there. The house prices are gone astronomical, so it's like the price cost of living has just gone crazy. But now you did an article about O extensions for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine. Thank you for that. Now, there's two aspects to these extensions. There's the actual meat and potatoes of an O and the criteria, and the re-adjudication of things, new itineraries, which is a big headache. And then there's the actual extension of status, Immigration 101, which is troublesome. And so you made some good points. What have you been seeing? Any trends recently that have been bothering you, or just things you noticed on the O1 extensions?
so, one trend I've noticed is the government sometimes they can just, differentiate between a 1-year extension on an O versus a 3-year extension. I mean, by the statutes, if you look at the stats and regs, a 3-year O should only be extendable 1 year at a time. Now, a lot of times, as a matter of practice, me and a lot of other attorneys put in a 3-year extension request for an O.
Mhm.
And we can do that on the theory that it's a new contract and not just necessarily an extension of the old contract. You know, you
Yeah.
include a new contract, and if you're going to go with this route, you should also include a new consultation letter and everything.
Mhm.
But you know, if we're making these 3-year extensions, it also kind of opens us up to the government's argument that this is no longer owed as much deference under this new deference policy memo, right? That
Yeah.
deference policy memo was strictly for extensions, and if you're asking for 3 more years as a new contract, so it's kind of splitting a hair that they weren't splitting when I first got into the game. You know,
Yeah.
I know that's only 5 6 years ago, but a lot of changes have happened in that time.
It's so
So
pivotal to get the 3 years. I know some people sometimes send in consular processing to get the 3 years, but you have a re-adjudication, and you never know what's going to happen when someone's looking at these things. I mean, like there's so many cases in L's and O's where someone has it for years and years, to 2 or 3 extensions, and all of a sudden they're like, no, we don't buy it anymore. Like, wait, for 5 years I've been like extraordinary. All of a sudden now I'm not. Like, how does that happen?
yeah, yeah,
It's
that's
only gotten better and better.
capricious.
I'm sorry.
It's arbitrary and
Yeah,
capricious. I mean,
exactly.
yeah,
Have you been filing lawsuits yourself? Have you had to?
I have. Yeah, that's one of the things that I love to do. It really lets you kind of flex your creativity. And honestly, I've been doing it always with mind of the big lawsuit in my eyes, that J Treaty one. So I'm just
Yeah,
always gearing up every
prepping.
one. In fact, recently I started working with another lawyer, kind of doing back end work, drafting motions for summary judgment on his cases. And
Mhm.
you know, government doesn't want to answer all of these. I think that's kind of a big
Yeah,
thing that we're looking at when we sue, and I've seen a lot of success, so I enjoy doing it. And that's
and
why
it's
I don't like my clients to consular process, because then if something goes wrong,
yeah,
they're stuck overseas. Jurisdiction is going to be hard to get. So
reviewability, all that kind of stuff pops
mm,
up. Yeah. So, they had statistics. Some group did, and like immigration lawsuits have just exponentially jumped up in the last 3 or 4 years. It's been kind of crazy. It's a big area of business. So it's really important to have that in your back pocket. For the J Treaty, where would you file a lawsuit? Where's the venue for that? The DC.
so I haven't quite decided. My client is down here in South Florida, so
Hmm.
I could file it in the Southern District. Now I'm admitted in DC, just in case I want to make that an option.
Yeah.
I was hoping to rope in CBP as a defendant as well,
Yeah.
but of course, the way it worked out with them kind of passing the bill, maybe I still can on the basis that they didn't follow the regulations as they're written, which says that they should have issued it at the border. But
Yeah.
um, I would almost feel more comfortable in South Florida
Yeah.
because I know that right now I've heard, and I haven't experienced this personally, that because the USCIS moved their headquarters to Maryland, I believe, or somewhere else, they're denying jurisdiction in DC.
Interesting. I've
I
heard.
filed
I've
I
had.
filed one case there,
Yeah.
and they didn't argue that point, but I've heard a lot of other attorneys saying that this has been going on. So I don't know. Have you
I've been
filed any
hearing,
there?
yeah, I've been hearing pushback with regards to administrative processing delays and where lawsuits will be made in DC. A lot of lawyers just stopped doing that because some judges, and one judge in particular, is just like saying, no, consular needs time to adjudicate this stuff and not pushing the embassies to adjudicate. So when it comes to administrative processing delays, people are a lot of people are going to more local jurisdictions now, not doing the DC, which is like the everyone was just shoving it over there. They got tired of it probably. But
Mhm.
these, yeah, there's so much strategy involved. When you add both immigration and federal litigation practice, it's just like a beast of thing to get. But that's where expertise comes from. So God bless you. You become a master of this
Uh,
stuff at a very young age. So how is life? So you're a full solo. Is that correct?
it's extremely solo dolo. I mean, I even wait in line at the post office sometimes.
I didn't get any sponsor from it, but did that. And here in LA, it's just such a line. I started getting stamps.com where I print it out, and I have
Mhm.
stamps.com lets you order a bunch of like envelopes. And so I just take those and the post office has a drop off and I do it there. I print it out. So I don't have to wait in line anymore. That was a godsend. It saves a lot of time. 'Cause I used to have to wait, and it just makes it so much easier to do that. Um,
Wow.
yeah, something to check out. But yeah, I was full solo for 10 years. We were talking about it a little briefly. There's a lot of personal attention you give people in a case when you're full solo, which I really love. And it was really good. Clients love it obviously, and you keep most of the money. His overhead just dramatically goes down. But I just recently hired an associate. The one thing we talked about earlier and started to take on the conversation, definitely jump in, is bringing people on board, especially the longer you're doing full solo, it becomes harder and harder because of like trust issue. Because I'm going to do this, I do it right. How much time is it going to take? And it's a hard thing, I think. But if you find the right person, it makes it easy. But finding the right person is a needle in a haystack in itself. But look, there's these big firms that have like 100 lawyers or something like that. They're pulling it off. So it's a complex thing. Do you have future plans on hiring, or right now you have your business plan and business model that's working out?
I mean, I'll have to hire someday.
Yeah,
Let's just face that. Right now, I've got a lot of lifestyle freedoms that I won't have forever. Right? I don't have kids or family to support, so I can live and breathe my firm. And but once I hire someone, I don't know. Let me ask you this: you just got your associates? Are they virtual or are they in office or?
I have one associate. She's virtual. She's in Virginia. So now we're East Coast and West Coast, and I mean we're talking every day between Zoom and Slack and Trello, which is our other system. We use all these different things. Pretty much constant communication. But the great thing is, I've been doing this long enough where I just want to focus more on strategy now and try to
Right.
use experience of just kind of catch issues. And it's great having her fresh eyes to kind of just go through the forms and make sure passport numbers are correct and stuff. Because my eyes could eventually start glazing over. I'm getting old and tired, so it's good to have that fresh blood there to go over those more nuanced stuff to double check everything, which is really helpful. And one thing I've seen is, and I remember being like this, is that when I was new, I was more paranoid about stuff, and that paranoia was really helpful. But that paranoia goes away after a while for like getting, a lot of approvals, a lot of clients and seeing it work. And so it's good having her paranoia come to place to kind of double check things. So it's just I think it was perfect timing. I probably should have done it 2 years ago, but we just connected. One thing that led me to be able to trust was I hired one by one people helping my marketing in overseas, and so it's stuff that wasn't legal. And so if something wrong happened or something, it would have been it's not a big deal. It's like, okay, this video wasn't edited right, we'll just take it down. And that helped me get more comfortable with management and like just talking to people, and that opened me up towards just trusting them, because I used to edit my own videos for market and then post them on social media. And I started to take up more than half my time just doing social media. It didn't make any sense anymore as a lawyer doing that kind of stuff. And obviously, like some stuff they do, I'm like, oh, I wish they did like this, but other stuff they just bring this talent and this attention and make it more beautiful. I'm like, well, I never would have been able to do that. So there's some loss in there, but there's some other gain that comes with it. But one of the things is like it's really about money too. It's like, could you want to afford it or do you need to afford it? For me, like cost of living goes up. I have kids and stuff like that, and so they take attention. So that was one thing. So I had less attention to give on other matters. And then it's the potential of growing comes a lot because I was hitting a plateau which was a plateau. I was really happy. It was my goal, my lifetime goal, how much money I was making. But my goal was set at being married and living a fun lifestyle with my wife. Now with two kids and LA lifestyle combined with that. So once that came into play, I'm like, okay, this goal that I reached isn't happening anymore. I got to double and then double that, and so now I'm on this treadmill to just grow it up. And when that happens, you need a team. But like you said, you're like full solo. You're no kids and stuff like that. It makes perfect sense. Gives you a lot of flexibility.
Well, I'm enjoying it while I can. I know that eventually I'll come to the part of the journey that you're on now. So,
How
but
old are
for
you?
now, yeah, I agree. It's going to be a hard dive to make to, let someone else
Yeah.
draft things. But
How old are you?
I just turned 33 recently.
Wonderful, wonderful. Congratulations. Yeah, that this that the clock is turning. Like once I'm 37. I think I also have to count the numbers. 37, turning 38 probably. And it's like you start seeing the end coming. Like, oh no, you gotta get stuff going. I gotta make sure I have systems in place and stuff like that. I remember when I was a kid, I would see like 30-year-olds, and I thought they're really old. And I'm like, now, damn, I'm almost about to be 40 right now. I think we're different in their parents' generation. Parents at like 40, they looked old. I guess life was harder. Things a little bit different. 30 right now feels like the old 20 or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe it was just our perspective, but yeah,
Yeah.
40 was more daunting for them than it was for us.
Yeah, 40 was like what it is like life starts at 4. I mean, they had that saying back then, but I like everything's pretty much in the 30s with what you're doing to what I'm doing set up. So then you take it next level at 40, setting the foundations for things. And immigration is like a time thing. I think like it's just so much you got to learn and experience you got to get. The more you do it, the better it is. And just
Mhm.
the more insight you have into it. So what are your plans? Or have you started setting aside one thing I'm doing now? I'm speaking to my associate of let's set a game plan for 2022 of what we're going to do. And some of it has to do with marketing and going into YouTube harder and stuff like that. And then redesigning the logo and all that kind of stuff. Do you have any game plans you've set up for 2022 plans that what you're going to do? Any emphasis on area or changes?
So definitely, you mentioned earlier outsourcing all the social media marketing.
Yeah.
That's something I've got to do. I feel like our paths are similar. I'm just further behind than you because I was doing all my own video editing and it takes up a lot of
Yeah.
time. And I've got someone coming in this next week who's going to help me make a little piece, and he's helped me make a piece before. And I don't post as frequently as I used to because I just don't have as much time anymore.
Yeah.
So I think part of my plan needs to be to outsource that, and because one thing I'm worried about with having an associate is also it's going to be a big chunk
Yeah.
out of my every 2 weeks overhead, right?
Yeah.
So I almost feel like I need to put the marketing before the associate.
Yeah, probably. And like what you said is like you were posting a lot. I remember reading your posts a lot. I don't access social media as much. I just kind of post, but I remember seeing your stuff, and it has kind of calmed down. But it's interesting because the social media stuff was working, and when it works, you get busy, and then you can't do social media. And I had 3 or 4 circles of this where like I was doing social media well, got busy, forgot about it, and then it just went up and then went down. Then I'm like, okay, I got to keep it consistent no matter what. And then that's what does it to make the consistency, because that's the thing. You got to associate it's a high dollar product. And nowadays, like there's a lot of people over like around the country you could do where they'll do part time and hourly and stuff. You can work it out, and you could maybe get paralegals overseas. We have one of the sponsors, Picardo Immigration. He has like paralegals set up in the Dominican that help out. There's cost effective ways to do it, because like especially if you're dealing with like O's, for example, and I've talked in other podcasts about this. There's people that'll do this O's for like $1,500, and so like it's like the competition just keeps getting lower and lower, and they maybe doing foreign talent, or maybe their paralegals doing it, or immigration consultants or whatever. But the pricing just becomes a thing because O's, when you get these R fees that are crazy, and then litigation, the costs just keep jumping up, and so it's a battle of like how much makes sense and how much doesn't. But yeah, you got to keep the marketing consistent and always keep pushing and growing it. And that's what I've been doing. I'm like, I'm constantly thinking, how could I get out more content? And there's a thought of, am I overdoing it? There's too much of me out there. But I'm sure Gary Vaynerchuk's like, you got to get at least 8 pieces of content a day. He gets like
Oh,
60 out. So I'm like essentially getting 3 or 4 pieces out of like content. Uh, it gets attention, it keeps things going, but I'm trying to overwhelm the internet with content, and the algorithms are really tricky because like YouTube, I was going fast. Then that's one of those things. I got busy and I even though I had a team, I just couldn't make as much content. Then my growth kind of subsided and plateaued. On TikTok, I just stopped because I got too tired. I couldn't do it all. I went really hard. I got 10,000, which was my goal, subscribers. Then I just couldn't do it anymore. But I got to get back into that. But I see people getting to TikTok and doing hardcore like 10 videos a day, and they have like no growth. It's like 200 followers. So how this algorithm work and how you get it, it's really a complex kind of thing. And they're experts out there. They cost a lot of money, and who knows if they're going to be good or not. It's a complex thing, but the only thing is you got to do it consistently, and you just let the chips fall where they may. I think it's the best way to do it if you're going to go the social media route.
I don't think my goal is necessarily virality. I've got 2,500 engaged followers. And by engaged, I mean, my likes are relatively high when I post things.
Yeah,
Uh, I get a lot of word of mouth references through them, and a lot of strangers saying, "Hey, I'm sending my friend to you." So
yeah,
it's giving me just enough clients right now for me to start every day off with coffee on the beach, and then
yeah,
get going around 9:30 or 10. I mean, I live a lifestyle that I think a lot of immigration lawyers might be envious of. So I
yeah,
recognize that, and it's kind of dangerous to be in a comfortable spot like that because inevitably, with
yeah.
inflation, and I want to be a family man someday. I'm going to have to grow, like you said. But
Yeah, that was a dream. I was living it, and I remember like it was just because I narrowed it down too. Like I don't do H1Bs, and we're opening up back to H1Bs and Ls now, but they were taking so long and perm stuff. You got to be so detailed and stuff. I didn't want to touch it because I didn't want to mess around. But it was good to do marriage cases, the L here and there, and EB1A here and there, and then just have fun and stuff. It's great, and kudos. I mean, it was a good lifestyle, and I still pretty much do it. I'm still with the kids, and I do all this kind of fun stuff. It's just now as I'm moving more towards review and strategy and management as opposed to day-to-day stuff. But I, it just, and then I think in the last, 2 years is when I just got tired of be filling out the forms myself, even and that kind of stuff. But I used to
mm,
love it. I remember at year 5, I was like so ecstatic just to fill out an I-485. I was like so exciting and going through it. It's just like I think it wears you down. I guess having kids and not sleeping, it does that too. Where it's just like I got to, but it's a shift. But I just like if you notice that happening, it's better to start sooner trying to figure out the scaling than later. Just because you just sooner go to the next level and grow. But I mean, it's different ways. A lot of immigration attorneys, most immigration attorneys are solo at most 1 or 2 lawyers. So there's no right or wrong way. And you could be a full solo, make a ton of money depending on how you charge and what kind of cases you get and all that kind of stuff. So it's all doable. It's not like my way's right or necessarily your future and stuff like that. But the aspect was that when we were talking before the recording of like developing, trust in somebody, it's really hard. Now I just got lucky. I have a training course and it was one of my students, and I worked with her a lot over like before for a year or two, and I realized, oh, this person is really on top of it, so we could do this. So, but not everyone has a training course, and a lot of people go through a lot of people like hiring, firing until they find the right one. It's definitely a hard thing. I intentionally didn't want to get hiring, firing because I'm like it's gonna take too much energy and thought and emotion, all this kind of stuff. But I was like, yeah, I got to take these next level at where I am because of the goals I have and just what my new lifestyle kind of needs. But you're in Hollywood over there in on the East Coast. I'm on close to Hollywood here on the West Coast, so we definitely know the sun lifestyle, the sunny lifestyle.
good, good. Well, man, you're killing it out there. I know it's a lot harder to make the same living in California than it is Florida. This is like the poor man's California out here.
Well, I always want to move out there, and it'll save me like 10% in taxes. Taxes here are incredible.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and the crime here has gotten pretty bad. I got my house robbed. Like, luckily they ran away. The alarm went off. But like, it's every day. It's like sirens and people getting hurt and shots and this and that. I mean, probably Florida's the same. The big cities are all happening, but here things are falling apart. Homelessness is pretty dramatic. I guess I should say this on this recording for posterity. I think that's the future of what's going on. LA's kind of falling apart right now. It's pretty bad. How are things over there in Florida or in your neck of the woods?
I mean, pretty good out here, to be honest.
Yeah.
Man, I've been seeing all this footage from California of shoplifters just walking out of the stores just nonchalantly while security guards just film them
They won't
leaving. And
prosecute him, so the cops can't. This pointless to do anything. That here in San Francisco and LA, the DA's like, we're not going to prosecute this stuff, so it's there's no point in police getting involved. And police probably feel the heat of people hating them and stuff like that. It's just a mix. It's a weird mix. And then the inflation's there. The difference between rich and poor has gotten dramatic. And it's like it's one of those. I think there's like a turn happening every couple generations. There's a massive turn. We're gearing up for that. And that's one of the reasons I scaled up. It's like, I've been saying this for years in my old podcast, but there's a dichotomy between rich and poor that's going to go crazy, the 1% and the 99. And I was looking at this. I'm like, I don't agree with the accumulation of wealth that's happening. There's a lot of bad stuff, but I'd rather be on that end than the 99%. So I'm like, I need to make
right.
as much money as possible to kind of keep life well as much as I, and then that way I can support people and challenge those power to extent you can challenge this kind of stuff. But I think it's just like this natural evolution. You studied political science too, didn't you? I think you did, right?
No, I studied entomology.
What's etymology? Is that wordplay? What is that etymology? I don't even know.
That's etymology.
Oh,
I studied entomology, the study of insects.
that was your major? Or I thought it was like be a doctorate or something. Study of
No,
insects.
no. I
Well, I
got a
mean, you have
degree.
them too. I mean, look, butterflies turn into, I mean, caterpillars turn into butterflies. It's evolution and monarch fauna.
Insects have Yeah, insect migratory patterns, that's part of immigration.
Definitely. Yeah, I started
Um,
found a nonprofit called the Migration Foundation, which is slowly ramping up. And the idea is just about the thought of migration. And I'm going to start it out focusing on human migration, especially U.S. immigration, which I know. But migration is part of life, and not even life, like everything. Like the Earth rotates around the sun and migrates around the sun. Insects migrate. Migration is just as pivotal to life as oxygen or carbon or all this kind of stuff. It's inherent in both life and matter. It's such a crazy wide concept that doesn't get its due in movies and stuff like that. It's always like this side note, but it's such a pivotal part of everything we do. This idea of migration. So I really want to dive into that and hopefully make movies or something like that's a grand goal of it. But
you know,
the
I
insects part of it.
I think about migration all the time too, and one thing you see in every form of migration, whether it's human or otherwise, is they move for a reason, right?
Yeah.
There's always a cause and effect between it. So whenever you see mass migration in or out of a country, you can usually connect the dots between what happened. If people don't just hate their homelands,
Yeah.
when people come to America, it's not because they hated where they're from. They probably loved where they're from,
Yeah.
but something happened that caused them to move. I mean, it happens everywhere in nature. It's like ducks might migrate because they can no longer survive in their homeland for part of the year, right? But
Yeah.
anyway,
True.
so I think about it a lot too in the bigger picture.
Mhm.
That's funny.
It's an important concept. So I just wanted to put it nice because there's obviously a lot of anti-immigration, all this kind of stuff out there, and just vitriol, hatred sometimes. So like I can understand, I can fully understand it, but like having economic reason or some social reason at times, but to just like blindly hate it's like, dude, it just makes sense that you would do the same. So it's kind of like being open-minded about what factors are causing these things to happen and maybe how your work or what you've done has affected that or the policies of your country that you're in. So it's obviously a very controversial topic. But we have some immigration bills going on that Build Back Better. It could be pretty dramatic and what's going to happen in immigration. That'll be interesting if that passes. My associate was reading it, telling me about it. We did a podcast on it for my law firm podcast, and I didn't. I used to read these bills a lot, and then they never happened. So I was like, I'm like, okay, I'm wasting my time. I'll wait for the president to sign it, and then I'll read it to see what's in there. But she read it. I was like, oh, this new bill, Build Back Better, if it's approved in the way it was written, like by the House, it's like huge. Like we're gonna be busy for a couple of years and you're definitely gonna be hiring an associate, a couple paralegals to help you on that. So
Nice.
it's a big business, but we'll see if it's actually going to happen. They got these things where they go back and get redo numbers, re-get capture numbers for visa numbers. So all these Indians will end up getting green cards, adjustment of status. It will be like, but
Oh, that's going to be a blessing.
yeah, but I think like anything they do, USCIS is not going to staff up fast enough, so that's just gonna be delays. I saw a tweet by reporter Suzanne Moniak. She said that the USCIS sent to the executive branch their ideas on how they're going to start doing the premium processing for I-765 for EADs, and like the bill that was the statute that was passed, where they're going to do premium processing, they're opening up premium processing to NIWs and EB1Cs and EADs and all this kind of stuff. So that's going to be neat. I mean, it's really expensive. It's like $2,500 to expedite your EAD, which is like dramatic, but some people need it. So we'll see if these things go through, happen. It'll somewhat get it better. And I feel like I've been talking a lot on this podcast. Sorry,
No, no, it's
I
okay.
haven't been on for a while, so I'm like, all this like thoughts on to get up,
And
but
when I describe premium processing to my clients, I jokingly say, I frame it as a bribe. I say, if you want this to be decided faster than 6 to 8 months, you've got to bribe the government $2,500, and they
yeah,
always get a kick out of it.
yeah,
It feels like that sometimes. I mean, uh,
yeah. There's a saying. There's this think of like premium processing causes automatic RFEs where they just don't want to bother doing it or something like that. Back in the day when I did L's, that wasn't always the case, because I do L's without premium processing. We still get a crazy RFE. So, but now I think I haven't done premium processing in a while, but they changed it from 2 weeks to like 30 days or something like that, or it's not as good as it used to be. But yeah,
well,
I
as
just
far
haven't
as I
felt.
know, it's still 15, and yeah, but I think I found that when you put in something that is subjective, like an O-1 or an EB1A with premium processing, something complex and subjective, like an artist or a chemist,
Yeah.
you're usually going to get that RFE. But with cases that you're just checking boxes like H-1Bs, I've had good luck with premium processing, with them sending back approvals, no questions asked. So,
Yeah, I remember last year I had a young guy who came to me and his H-1B had been pending since from April to February-ish. It was still pending. And that's when Trump, it was maybe 2, 3 years ago, and Trump had shut down premium processing. And his family, he was CISPA qualified for like a sibling green card. So he's like, what should I do now? H-1Bs are pending all this time. I'm like, just go do constant processing, get it out of the way. And he got it and everything. But it's like incredible for H-1B to go, from April, almost a full year, at least 3 quarters of a year pending. It's just stupid. And then we have this third round of H-1Bs that happen where people just
yeah.
lost their jobs and went back, they forgot about it. All of a sudden they get picked. It's like, it doesn't make sense to have a system for a third round of a raffle. This is wild. This is crazy.
I mean, I kind of liked their new system where they did the lottery first, the
Yeah.
current system that we're on with the registration and all that. That is a huge weakness of it. I mean, how would they solve that, right? Would they just take out a lot of extras in the beginning and then inform
Yeah.
them later that they weren't selected? Should they get
Yeah.
like a yellow list or something? Like you're on the second line,
Maybe,
so
maybe. At first, I was like, no, because that'd be this and that. But maybe just having a backup and letting them know. It's kind of like when you get accepted into college or law school. They're like, well, you're on
mm,
like thing, and so because like it's at least give them something for you to hold on to and go. And it's a weird. A lot of these things about immigration reform, it's just so hard to do it because it's not like you fix immigration. There's like 50 visa categories you got to think about. And each one have subcategories. Like the O-1 itself, like it's subjective at the end of the day. Is this person extraordinary or not? And to somebody, they may be extraordinary. They might not be to another person. So it's really hard to really do legislation on this stuff. It's always gonna. That's why I think immigration law is always going to be a part of it because you need someone that could interpret what the person does, translate it to someone to adjudicate it, and making checklists for H-1B. You can, but then again, they push back on the job title, the description, all this kind of stuff too. Sometimes, especially during Trump's time, it's a
mm,
really complex thing to want to reform even. And these huge packages are like it's just too big. I think like it has to be piece by piece, but that's hard getting done in Congress too. Like you do per individual category. So I'm pessimistic about any reform happening. Really, I just think we're going to continue what we're doing, and agencies are just going to every 4 years, switch up their politics and switch up how they adjudicate things.
mm. Well, at least we'll stay employed, right?
Yeah, that's a that job hacks for us. Well, good stuff. If people want to reach out to you, connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
You know what? I recommend they check out my Instagram. It's probably where my best self is portrayed. It's at Pilevhar Law. That's Pilehvar. LAW. So yeah, I've got a
And
lot
are
of
you
good stuff.
you're
Go
making
for
some
it.
immigration art. I remember you gave me a lovely passport protector holder. Are you still doing that?
I've got mugs now. I can go get my mug right now, but there's a few things that I quit doing, like shoes.
Mhm.
I actually even sold some of these immigration shoes. They looked like Toms, but they had my custom design all over them. Here, I'll grab my
You
mug.
get it, get it. If we're on video for people to see, maybe we'll take a screenshot and share it on Instagram and stuff. It's really neat. He's what he's getting for those listening on the audio. As his designs that are immigration related. Here's the mug. It's really neat that you did that, and it's all sorts of products you put this on. I was like, you got the thing of Shadow of Iran thing, the thing, yeah. But he snuck that in there.
Right.
I remember you have like wallets and passport holders. You have the shoes. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
that's an item right there.
Yeah, my wallet, I forgot. Yeah, I've got one in my pocket.
That's
So,
really cool.
I started selling the shoes and most people were happy with them, but one time the manufacturer printed one backwards and for
Yeah.
the same lady, she got a replacement and then he printed it really fuzzy. And the
Oh,
manufacturer finally fixed it, but I think 2 mess ups was enough and he cut me off. So no more shoes.
yeah, that's complex. Yeah, I'd be mass producing it for them to pay attention enough, or else it gets super expensive too.
Exactly.
Well, real cool. I mean, like, do you have a storefront where people can see this, or is it just you kind of make him based on?
No, these are limited release. In fact, sometimes I'll give them away as like a a a door raffle item at a conference here in Central Florida sometimes. So I don't know. I've considered selling them again, but every time I put them for sale, I have a new respect for clothing line owners. I'll just say that.
Yeah,
Man,
I hear you.
between getting them produced and then pleasing the
Yeah, it's a
customers.
whole thing, and you got your plate full. Well, thanks for coming to the show. Stay on the line. We'll talk a little bit in a second. But if you want to check out Taymor's article, check out the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox magazine at immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. I'm sorry, .com slash magazine. And there's just a ton of information there, old articles, and old issues, and we'll have an issue hopefully coming out in a few weeks. I'm past due our deadline. Speaking of newfound respect for manufacturing clothing, magazine publishers and these deadlines are hard too, especially if you have a law firm you're operating and stuff. I'm missing my deadlines, but we have all the articles. We have almost 20 articles, I think. It's going to be massive magazine, a lot of information. So that's what we really need. Tamer, thanks for coming on the show.
No problem, John. You're doing a great job from our end on the magazines, man. It looks great. So I'm
I
proud
really,
to be in it. Thanks for having me on.
thanks so much. God bless.
Bye, John.